Hey, what's up guys? Steve here, and today we're going to take a look at the 20 highest selling vintage baseball cards from the spring of 2023 Mile High auction that ended on April 21st. And we'll kick today's list off at number 20 with this 1887 Allen & Genter Adrian Anson. This was an SGC7 that received 20 bids and sold for $13,729. This is the record sell of this card in an SGC7 and the first to break the 5-figure mark as well. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by a PSA 9 that sold for $111,000 at a Heritage auction back in December of 2020. Up next at number 19 is this 1933 Sport Kings Babe Ruth, card number 2. This was an SGC 5.5 that received 14 bids, and it sold for $14,779. This is the new record sell of this card in a 5.5. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by a PSA 8 that sold for $210,000 at a Heritage auction back in May of 2021. Coming in at number 18 is this 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson, card number 79. This was an SGC 4.5 that received 12 bids, and it sold for $15,267. This price is up roughly $1,100 from the last SGC 4.5 comp I found from February of 2022. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by a PSA 8, that sold for $468,000 at a Heritage auction back in early 2022. Up next at number 17 is this 1967 Topps Mets Rookies Tom Seaver, card number 581. This was a PSA 9 that received 18 bids, and it sold for $15,632. This price is right in line with the last few PSA 9 comps I found dating back to the summer of 2022. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by a PSA 10 that sold for $344,000 at a Golden auction back in early 2021. This rookie is a pop of 93 in a PSA 9 with only 3 copies graded higher in a PSA 10. Coming in at number 16 is this 1911 Sporting Life Cabinets Honus Wagner. This was a PSA 2 with an MK qualifier that received 16 bids, and it sold for $16,414. This is the first ever sell of this card I could find with a qualifier. The closest comp I could find was a PSA 4 without a qualifier that sold for $18,600 at a Heritage auction back in December of 2020. Coming in at number 15 is this 1954 Red Heart Mickey Mantle. This was a PSA 9 that received 17 bids, and it sold for just short of 20 grand. This price is down roughly 7 grand from the last PSA 9 comp I found from back in January of this year. This card is a pop of 40 in a PSA 9 with only 2 copies graded higher in a PSA 10. I still have never been able to find a prior comp of this card in a PSA 10. Coming in at number 14 is this 1952 Topps Andy Pafko, card number 1. This was a PSA 7 that received 19 bids, and it sold for $24,258. This price is up roughly 7 grand from the last PSA 7 comp I found from July of 2022. This card is a pop of 31 in a PSA 7, with only 6 copies graded higher including a pop of 3 and a PSA 8 for the 3 highest rated copies. Coming in at number 13 is this 1978 Topps Rookie Shortstops, card number 707. This was a PSA 10 that received 21 bids, and it sold for $28,800. This card continues to come down in a PSA 10, as the all-time record sale was just set in January of this year, selling for $66,000, and then another PSA 10 selling for $40,800 back in February. This rookie is a pop of 29 in a PSA 10. Up next at number 12 is this 1909 T206 Old Mill Ty Cobb. This was a PSA 6 that received 22 bids and sold for $31,753. This is the new record sale of this card in a PSA 6. This card is a pop of only 4 in a PSA 6, with only 3 copies graded higher, including a pop of 1 in a PSA 8 for the highest graded copy. Coming in at number 11 is this 1961 Topps Mickey Mantle, card number 300. This was a PSA 9 that received 17 bids, and it sold for $32,523. This price is right in line with the only 2 other PSA 9 comps I found from 2023. This card is a pop of 71 in a PSA 9, and I still have never found a comp for a pop of 2 PSA 10. Make that back-to-back appearances to kick off the top 10 with this 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle, card number 253. This was a PSA 6 that received 20 bids, and it sold for $34,714. This price is down roughly $6,000 from what PSA 6s of this card have been going for in 2023. The all-time record sale of this card is still held by a PSA 9, that sold for just short of $3.2 million back in December of last year. Up next at number 9 is this 1954 Topps Hank Aaron, card number 128. This was a PSA 8 that received 22 bids, and it sold for just short of $36,000. This card in a PSA 8 is down in 2023, as there was a handful of comps from late 2022 that ranged between $40 and $56,000. A PSA 10 of this card has not hit the market since 2012, where the last one sold for just short of $358,000. Coming in at number 8 is this 1952 Topps Ed Matthews, card number 407. This was an SGC 7 that received 27 bids, and it sold for just short of $40,000. This is the new record sale of this card in an SGC 7, beating out the previous record by roughly $15,000. The last PSA 7 of this rookie sold for $30,000 back in June of 2022. Up next at number 7 is this 1978 Topps All-Star Rookie Eddie Murray, card number 36. This was a PSA 10 that received 22 bids and sold for $41,166. This price is within $4,000 of what PSA 10s have been going for dating back to early 2021. Graded over 12,000 times by PSA, this rookie is a pop of only 18 in a PSA 10. Coming in at number 6 is this 1933 Sport Kings Ty Cobb, card number 1. This was a PSA 8 that received 21 bids, and sold for $44,685. This is the new record sell of this card in a PSA 8, beating out the previous record by roughly $5,000. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by a PSA 9 that sold for $132,000 at a Heritage auction back in July of 2020. Kicking off the top 5 of today's list is this 1933 Goudey Babe Ruth, card number 53. This was a GAI 8.5 that received 21 bids, and it sold for $61,338. This price is down roughly $10,000 from the last GAI 8.5 that sold back in August of 2022. The all-time record sell of this card is still held by the only PSA 9 to ever hit the market, that sold for just over $4.2 million at a Memory Lane auction back in July of 2021. Up next at number 4 is this 1952 Topps Jackie Robinson, card number 312. This was a PSA 8 that received 22 bids, and it sold for $145,812. This card continues to drop in a PSA 8, after one just sold for $276,000 back in June of 2022. A PSA 9 of this card still holds the all-time record sell, selling for just short of $1 million back at the peak of the market in early 2021. Coming in at number 3 is this 1952 Topps Willie Mays, card number 261. This was a PSA 8 that received 21 bids, and it sold for $160,759. This card in a PSA 8 continues to come back down, as this is the lowest PSA 8 comp I found since October of 2020. A PSA 9 of this card has not hit the market since April of 2017, and a PSA 9 still holds the all-time record sell, as a PSA 9 sold for $478,000 at a Heritage auction back in May of 2016. Up next at number 2 is this 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle, card number 311. This was a PSA 5.5 that received 29 bids, and it sold for $161,599. This is the highest comp I could find of this card in a PSA 5.5 in 2023, and is right in line with a few comps I found from 2022 as well. Unless a pop of 3 PSA 10 pops up sometime in the future, it looks like that SGC 9.5 of this card that sold for $12.6 million back in August of 2022 will be holding the all-time record sell for the foreseeable future. And topping off today's list at number 1 is this 1949 Bowman Satchel Paige, card number 224. This was a PSA 9 that received 27 bids, and it sold for $216,563. This is the second highest sell of this card in any grade by any grading company. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.